So picture this. It's like 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and I'm already up making potato salad from scratch, marinating chicken thighs, and prepping veggie skewers for what I thought would be an epic family gathering. No cap, I spent my entire Friday evening at Target grabbing cornhole sets, citronella candles, and those fancy paper plates that don't fold in half when you load them up with food. Even reserved the prime spot at Riverside Park, the one with the big oak tree and the perfect view of the lake. I was pumped, for real. Been planning this thing for weeks, sending group texts to make sure everyone could make it. Mom, Dad, my 2 sisters, a handful of aunts and uncles, and yeah, my cousin Trey. Golden boy Trey with his perfect smile and his knack for showing up last but somehow stealing all the spotlight. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let me paint you the full picture of how this whole mess went down. I rolled up to the park around 10 a.m. in my beat-up Honda Civic, trunk packed tighter than a can of Pringles. Started setting up the whole spread, red checkered tablecloth, Coleman coolers full of ice-cold Coke and Bud Light, the works. My sister Jenny showed up first, helped me arrange the chairs in a nice circle around the picnic table. We were vibing, laughing about some TikTok video she saw, and I'm thinking this is going to be perfect. Then the rest of the crew started rolling in. Mom brought her famous 7-layer dip. Dad hauled over his portable speaker, already bumping some classic rock. Uncle Mike and Aunt Sarah pulled up with their kids, who immediately started eyeing the cornhole boards I'd set up. Everything was coming together exactly how I'd imagined it. And then Trey showed up. Dude pulled into the parking lot blasting music from his brand new Chevy Silverado. Thing was shiny black with chrome everything, probably cost more than I make in 6 months. The second he stepped out, it was like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, everyone's crowding around him, asking about the truck, running their hands along the paint job like it was some kind of museum piece. "Oh my gosh, Trey, this is gorgeous." Mom was practically gushing. "When did you get this beauty?" "Just picked her up yesterday," he said with that cocky grin, hands in his pockets like he was posing for a magazine cover. Fully loaded too. Heated seats, backup camera, the whole 9 yards. And just like that, my carefully planned family picnic became the Trey Appreciation Hour. Update. Guys, I need your honest opinion here. Am I crazy for feeling completely invisible at my own event? Like, I spent hours making everything perfect, and they're acting like I don't even exist. What would you do in this situation? I stood there by the grill, spatula in hand, watching my entire family fawn over this truck like it was the second coming. Dad was asking about the engine specs. My sisters were taking selfies against the hood, and Uncle Mike was already talking about test driving it later. Meanwhile, the chicken I'd marinated overnight was starting to char because nobody noticed. I was trying to keep the food from burning. "Hey!" I called out, raising my voice over their excited chatter. "Food's ready if anyone's hungry." A few people glanced my way, gave me those polite nods, but the conversation kept flowing around Trey and his shiny new ride. Mom did wander over eventually, grabbed a plate, and said, "Thanks, sweetie," before heading right back to the truck discussion. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't new. This was the pattern that had been playing out my entire freaking life. I started thinking back to high school graduation. While I was valedictorian speaking at the ceremony, everyone was buzzing about how Trey had finally passed his classes and would actually graduate. "Such a relief," they said. "We're so proud he pulled through." Meanwhile, my 4 years of straight A's barely got a mention at the family dinner afterward, or when I got my first apartment at 22, working 2 jobs to afford the rent and deposit. The family group chat was full of congratulations, sure, but within the same week, Trey got a DUI, and suddenly everyone was rallying around him, offering support, talking about how everyone makes mistakes, and how we needed to be there for family. My achievement got buried under his crisis, and somehow I ended up being the one driving him to his court dates because you're so responsible and reliable. College graduation? I walked across that stage with honors, student loans paid off through scholarships and part-time work. The celebration lasted exactly until Trey announced he was dropping out of community college to find himself and maybe start a band. Suddenly, the conversation shifted to how college isn't for everyone, and how creative pursuits are just as valid. Not wrong, but the timing sucked. Every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering, there was always something about Trey that overshadowed whatever I had going on. If I got a promotion, he was dealing with getting fired. If I bought a new car, used but new to me, he was having relationship drama. If I cooked a nice meal, he was having money troubles and needed to borrow some cash that we all knew he'd never pay back, and the family ate it up every single time. Poor Trey, he just needs support. Trey's going through a rough patch. Trey's really trying to turn his life around this time. But me? I was just expected to have my stuff together. No drama, no crisis, no need for attention or support. Just reliable, steady, boring me who always showed up, always helped out, always kept my mouth shut when things got unfair. Standing there watching them ooh and ah over his truck, which, let's be real, he probably financed at some ridiculous interest rate. Something inside me just snapped. I walked back to the picnic table, started quietly packing up the food I'd spent hours preparing, wrapped up the sandwiches, closed the containers of potato salad, loaded everything back into my coolers. Jenny noticed first. "What are you doing?" she asked, looking genuinely confused. "Cleaning up," I said, keeping my voice level. "But we just got here. People are still eating." I looked around. Uncle Mike had a paper plate with some chips on it, and Dad was nursing a beer, but most people were still clustered around the truck. The carefully prepared meal I'd stressed over was sitting there mostly untouched, while everyone admired Trey's latest purchase. "Doesn't look like anyone's that interested in the food," I said, continuing to pack. Update. The way they're acting, you'd think I was being dramatic for wanting some acknowledgement at the event I organized. But honestly, I'm starting to see a bigger pattern here. Should I say something or just handle this quietly? That's when I pulled out my phone and typed up a quick note. Since everyone seems more interested in Trey's truck than the picnic I spent. All weekend planning, I'm heading out. The cornhole set and speaker are rentals that need to be returned by 5 p.m., so figure that out. Hope you all have a great time admiring the Silverado. Don't worry about cleaning up. I already handled it. Left the note on the picnic table, weighed down with a small rock, grabbed my keys, and started walking toward my car. The whole thing took maybe 10 minutes, and nobody even noticed until I was already backing out of the parking spot. That's when the show really started. My phone started buzzing before I even made it to the park exit. Text after text, call after call. I let it all go to voicemail, drove straight to the little coffee shop downtown, and treated myself to an iced latte and a breakfast sandwich. Sat on their outdoor patio, turned my phone to silent, and just enjoyed the peace and quiet for the first time in weeks. When I finally checked my messages around 3 p.m., it was like scrolling through a soap opera script. Mom, where did you go? Everyone's asking about you. Dad, this is childish. Come back and we'll talk. Jenny, seriously? You're gonna ditch your own party? But the best ones came from Trey himself. Wow, way to make everything about you. Real mature. You totally ruined my big day. Thanks a lot. Everyone's upset and it's your fault. Hope you're happy. I actually laughed out loud reading that last one. His big day? At my picnic? The audacity was almost impressive. The voicemails were even better. Uncle Mike stammering about how I was being a little dramatic and how family sticks together. Aunt Sarah trying to play peacemaker, saying everyone was just excited about the truck and didn't mean to ignore me. Mom going full guilt trip about how disappointed she was in my selfish behavior. But the real kicker was Dad's message. You embarrassed the whole family today. Trey's feelings are hurt, and frankly, so are mine. I expected better from you. Trey's feelings were hurt, not mine, after being completely invisible at my own event. His. I spent the rest of the afternoon at Barnes & Noble, browsing through books and actually relaxing for the first time in forever. Bought myself a new novel, grabbed some sushi for dinner, and headed home to my quiet apartment. It was honestly one of the best evenings I'd had in months. The next few days were wild. The family group chat was blowing up with messages about how I needed to apologize, how I'd overreacted, how family gatherings wouldn't be the same if I kept acting out like this. A few people tried to play both sides, saying they understood I was upset but that walking away wasn't the right solution. But here's the thing. Once I stepped back and really looked at the situation, I started seeing the pattern everywhere. How many times had I organized get-togethers that became about someone else? How many family emergencies had I dropped everything for, only to have my own needs brushed aside? How many times had I been the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who just handled things without expecting any recognition? I realized I'd been setting myself up as the family doormat for years, and they'd gotten so comfortable with it that they didn't even see me anymore. I was just the person who showed up, cleaned up, and shut up. So I decided to try something different. I stopped responding to the guilt trips, stopped jumping every time someone needed something. When Trey's truck payments started eating into his budget, and he needed to borrow money for rent, I didn't answer that text. When Mom wanted me to organize the family Christmas party like I had for the past 3 years, I politely declined and suggested they try something new. Update. The family's response to me setting boundaries has been interesting. They're calling it everything from selfish to dramatic, but I'm starting to feel like myself again. Is it wrong to put your own peace of mind first when family takes you for granted? The pushback was immediate and intense. Suddenly I was being difficult and selfish and not the person they raised me to be. Uncle Mike cornered me at the grocery store one day, telling me how disappointed he was that I was abandoning family over something so small. Mom started sending me articles about the importance of family unity and forgiveness. But the most revealing response came from Trey himself. He showed up at my apartment one evening, looking sheepish and holding a 6-pack of Corona. Look, he said, everyone's saying I should apologize or whatever, so sorry if you felt ignored at the picnic. Can we move past this now? The family's falling apart without you organizing everything. Not sorry for ignoring me, sorry if I felt ignored. Classic non-apology. The family's falling apart? I asked, genuinely curious. Well, nobody's planning anything anymore. Mom and Dad keep asking when you're going to organize the next get-together. Jenny doesn't know how to make your potato salad recipe. It's just different. And there it was. They didn't miss me. They missed my labor. They missed having someone to plan their events, cook their food, clean their messes, and ask for nothing in return. Maybe someone else can step up, I suggested. You could organize something. He actually laughed. Me? I'm not good at that kind of stuff. You're the one who's always been into planning things. Into it. Like it was my hobby instead of unpaid, emotional labor that nobody appreciated. I thanked him for the beer, told him I needed some space to figure things out, and sent him on his way. He left looking confused and a little annoyed, probably expecting me to cave and go back to being the family organizer. Over the next few months, something amazing happened. Without all the family drama and obligations eating up my weekends, I actually had time for myself. I started taking a pottery class on Saturday mornings, joined a hiking group that met every other Sunday, signed up for that yoga membership I'd been putting off because I was always too busy helping someone else with their problems. I made new friends, people who actually listened when I talked, who remembered things I told them, who invited me to stuff because they enjoyed my company, not because they needed something from me. I started dating again, something I'd barely had time for when I was constantly playing Family Crisis Manager. My apartment became my sanctuary instead of just the place I crashed between family emergencies. I redecorated, bought some plants, created a reading nook by the window, started cooking elaborate meals just for myself, trying new recipes without worrying about accommodating everyone else's dietary restrictions and preferences. The family kept trying different tactics to reel me back in: guilt trips about missed holidays, attempts at bribery, promising they'd appreciate me more if I just came back to planning things. Even some manipulation, with people claiming they were worried about me because I was isolating myself. But I wasn't isolated, I was selective. Big difference. I started spending holidays with friends who actually wanted me there, not people who expected me to show up with homemade desserts and a cheerful attitude while they ignored me. Christmas morning at my friend Sarah's house, with her chosen family of fellow transplants and people who'd grown apart from their biological families, was the most relaxed holiday I'd had in years. The final straw for my family came when they tried to organize a intervention of sorts. Mom called and said they were all getting together to talk through this situation, and I needed to be there. When I asked what situation, she said, my withdrawal from the family was causing problems for everyone. I told her I wasn't withdrawing. I was just not volunteering to be everyone's unpaid event coordinator anymore. If they wanted family gatherings, they were free to organize them. If they wanted my potato salad recipe, I'd be happy to share it. But I wasn't going to keep setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. She hung up on me. That was 8 months ago. The angry texts have mostly stopped. The guilt trips have faded to occasional passive-aggressive comments on social media. A few family members have reached out individually to rebuild relationships on more equal terms, which I've appreciated. But the majority have moved on to other sources of free labor and emotional support. And honestly, I've never been happier. I'm not saying cutting off family is the right answer for everyone, but sometimes you have to step back far enough to see the whole picture. Sometimes you have to stop giving so much of yourself that there's nothing left for you. My cousin Trey still drives that Silverado, though I heard through the grapevine that he's behind on payments. The family still has gatherings, though apparently they're smaller and less organized without someone putting in all the behind-the-scenes work. Mom still sends me the occasional text about how much they miss me, but it's usually followed by a request for my help with something. As for me, I bought myself a nice used Subaru Outback last month. Reliable, practical, perfect for my weekend hiking adventures. Nobody made a big fuss about it, but my hiking friends were genuinely excited for me. We christened it with a road trip to the mountains just because we wanted to. That's the difference between people who value you and people who use you. The people who value you celebrate your wins, big and small. The people who use you only notice you when you stop showing up to serve them. I learned that the hard way at a family picnic that was supposed to be about bringing everyone together. Instead, it taught me the most important lesson of my adult life. Your worth isn't determined by how much you're willing to sacrifice for people who don't appreciate the sacrifice. These days, when I plan gatherings, they're with people who actually want to be there with me, not just consume what I provide. When I cook elaborate meals, it's for friends who compliment the food and help with cleanup. When I need support, I can count on getting it from people who don't see me as just the reliable one who handles everything. And when someone gets a new truck, we're all genuinely happy for them, but it doesn't become a 3-hour worship session. That overshadows everything else. Because healthy relationships have room for everyone's joy, not just the loudest person's latest acquisition. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is pack up your potato salad and walk away. Trust me on this one.